Thank you, Gene Shelton, and thank you on behalf of everyone here for chairing this evening's event and working tirelessly to bring it to fruition. It is a great honor to welcome the faithful Armenian Christians of our St. Paul Armenian Church family, our esteemed guest clergy from across the Gulf Coast and beyond, our talented performers tonight, Arsen Salakian, who is representing the Republic of Armenia Armed Forces, our partners at the Florida Holocaust Museum and the USF Holocaust and Genocide Study Center, our guest speaker for tomorrow, Dr. Remembrance-Armenian, and all of our dear friends on this significant occasion. The 100th year of remembrance of the Armenian Genocide has been a time to remember the darkest episode in our people's history and the history of other Christian minorities in Ottoman Turkey, including Assyrians, Syrians, Chaldeans, and Greeks. As we know all too well, this first genocide of the 20th century set a dreadful pattern of ruthless violence against minorities, religious and cultural, in Europe, Asia, and in Africa, which continues even to this day. In tonight's performances, you will feel the mournful spirit of millions. Your ancestors and mine, Armenian, Jewish, Syrian, Greek, victimized by this past century of genocide. But you will also feel another spirit through the tears in the morning. The spirit which has promised, Yerani Sakavorneru, Orvete Anok Piti Lukidarni. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. The spirit which promises, Yerani Anokor Halatzvatsen Arkavuchan Hamar, Orvete Yerkinki Takavorutuna Anos. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. It is this spirit, and this spirit alone, which can transform a century of genocide into a century of fellowship, perseverance, and triumph. And that spirit is working through us tonight. First, in simply gathering together in fellowship, we help ensure that this still young century will not bear witness to genocide, nor stand idly by if it again threatens. Second, in celebrating with our performances the indomitable spirit of the Armenian heritage, we bear witness to the fact that genocide was not successful in eradicating these people and their culture, and no perpetrators ever will be. And finally, our ecumenical service will echo the triumph of last night's historic canonization of the Armenian Genocide martyrs in Holy Ecumenici, where the victims of the genocide have been transformed in Christ to be victors of the church and champions of the faith. Republican Congressman Gus Bilirakis represents Florida's 12th congressional district and is currently serving in his 5th term in the U.S. House of Representatives. Gus, of course, is of Greek ethnic heritage, and like his father before him who served in Congress, Gus values public service as well as promoting and protecting ethnic heritage. He has been a tireless advocate for persecuted religious minorities, especially in the Middle East, around the world. And we were very honored to hear last fall, of Congressman Bilirakis' vice chairmanship of the Congressional Caucus on Armenian issues, where he champions Armenian Genocide legislation, the Turkey Christian Churches Accountability Act, and many other issues of interest to Armenians in the diaspora and in the homeland. I called Congressman Bilirakis' offices a year ago, and it was a totally pleasant experience, and he is at mercy of his busy schedule in Congress, but the Lord works in mysterious ways, and also we very much appreciate that you prioritize your time to be with us today. I now invite the Congressman to say a few words.
Thank you so very much. Christos Anes, Christ has arisen. Your Eminences, members of the clergy, my brothers and sisters. Good evening, and thank you so much for inviting me to this important gathering to remember the event of 100 years ago. You all, again, in the St. Armenian Church community, I hope I pronounced that right, have been wonderful and so welcoming to me. I feel that you are family, again, you're cousins, at least we're brothers and sisters, at the very least we're cousins, I will say that. And that's why I always will speak on your behalf. It's always the right thing to do. We do the right thing and everything else. It has been 100 years since the atrocities committed against innocent Armenians, but there will not be another century of international silence as far as we're concerned. There will not be another period of indifference or international ignorance to the lives lost in systematic murder. Today marks an important time in world history that tested the will and character of the Armenian people. This test could have easily shattered an entire people and culture, but it didn't. We have so many things in common. Our ancestors knew Syrian Christians were systematically slaughtered. We know this is a historical fact that even Henry Morgenthau, the U.S. ambassador to the Ottoman Empire at the time, could not deny. The world was horrified. It was horrified by the carnage. So long as these men and women and children are not forgotten, their sacrifice will continue to have meaning now and in the future. Like the earliest Christians, the Armenians proved themselves not only survivors of persecution, but also masters of their destinies. And looking out into this crowd, this wonderful crowd today, I'm glad to see so many young people as well. It is evident that we are in the presence of leaders. And I will tell you how important it is for us to stand up and speak the truth. And as you know, I voted, and it's in the script, I voted for the Armenian resolution. I co-sponsored the Armenian resolution and also vice chairman of the caucus. And I got a lot of pressure from high-ranking U.S. officials. The evening prior to the vote, I was on the Foreign Affairs Committee. And all I had to do was tell them that I was a Greek heritage. And I know what happened to my people. And I got them off the phone right away because they knew they were wasting their time with me. As a matter of fact, just the other day, I was at the local Kiwanis actually in Hillsborough County, and an elderly Greek gentleman was saying goodbye, and I asked him his name. You know how we always talk about the motherland and where are you from? You know, where's your family from? In Greece, in this case. And he said, Constantinople, age of mine, two of my grandfathers were beheaded, and my two yayas, my two grandmothers, were lost. He never got to know his grandparents. So again, as you know, I've been a strong supporter of Armenians and the Armenian Genocide resolution, and we will not rest until it passes the House, the Senate, and the President recognizes the one. These atrocities should not be ignored. The Turks, we must stand up to them, and they will not intimidate us. Whether they took place in the early 20th century by the Ottoman Turks, the mid-20th century by the Third Reich, or now with the ongoing targeted violence in the Middle East, North Africa, genocide is genocide. Genocide. Genocide to be another wake-up call for the world. We must learn from the past to prevent the atrocities committed by radical Islam today. Christians and other minorities are being killed solely because of their religion, and no modern society should sit silently face of such barbaric brutality. While we should always seek peace where there is long-standing conflict, we cannot ignore that lives are being destroyed due to their religious beliefs. As we continue to seek a final acknowledgement of the horrific events that took place so long ago, please know that I always stand with you in solidarity with the Armenian people. And I will tell you this, we have a lot of support amongst the ranking power members in Congress. And it's because of you. We're going to Washington and talking to your friends and educating them on this. I can't emphasize that strongly enough, that we must educate people so they know. gave birth. I don't know if you saw the piece, but it was on Yahoo today. And I saw it this morning. We must educate these members of Congress, and we must put pressure on the congressional leaders. Ed Royce from California, as you know, is a strong supporter. And there's several. We had the commemoration actually last night, or was it Wednesday night, I believe, and Thursday night, and we had several members of Congress speak on behalf. So again, we can't give up, ladies and gentlemen, and God bless you. Theos Pasisas, and I will always be there for you as well. So thank you very much for inviting me here this evening.
and children. Women are carried away to the mountains by the current. Headline, September 24th, 1915. 500,000 Armenians said to have perished in the Turkish war of extinction.
I was 13 years old when the Turkish soldiers came to Ankara. The soldiers said that they had to count the Armenian numbers. I was 13, so they put me in line with the men. They put a notch in my ear to show I was counted, just like they did with cows and sheep. Now you know why I'm missing my ear. They put us in a long line and said we were going to a safe place. My uncle was old, so they didn't count me, and they didn't put us in the line. There was much confusion. There were families being separated. Everyone was crying. My uncle grabbed me and hid me in the well. Soldiers knew I was missing. They demanded my uncle tell them where I was. He refused. The next thing I heard was a splash next to me in the well water. It was my uncle's head. I wanted to scream, but I could not. I stayed in the well for 3 days and nights before I could escape. My uncle's eyes were open the entire time. Even now, when I go to sleep, I can still see his eyes looking at me.
I was murdered by Turkish soldiers when I was 7 years old. I was playing with me and my brother for fun. My brother was afraid of the dark and wanted to go home. I didn't listen. The Turkish soldiers came, the massacre started. The soldiers started yelling and shooting anyone who didn't obey their orders. I panicked and ran. I couldn't go home, so I hid in the safest place I could think of, the church. So did many other people. A Turkish soldier found me hiding behind the altar. He looked right at me and smiled. He motioned for me to come out. I was too frightened to move. So he shot me. I was still alive. I begged for mercy, and he stuffed a bayonet inside of me. They burned the church after with everyone inside. I can still hear the voices of those burnt alive when the flames came. I was like, when am I going to be buried? Virtually the whole nation had been wiped out. The men were separated from the women and the children, and the men were taken to a convenient place and shot or bayoneted. The women and children were then put under a convoy of the lower class soldiers and dispatched to a distant destination.
I was 9 years old in the city of Jagannagar. We were a preposterous family. We had fruit trees, chickens, cows, and sheep. One day the Turkish soldiers came. They took away all the teachers, doctors, and priests. Then they started to kill all the men and most of the women and children. My older sister and I were the only ones left in our family. She just had a baby. We were forced to march from our beautiful city towards the deserts of Deir. I was so tired, hungry, and thirsty. My sister's baby cried all the time and never stopped crying. There were many people who could not continue. They just sat down because they couldn't move anymore. The soldiers would stab them or shoot them. I had to close my eyes. My sister held my hand and sang a song to keep me calm. As we walked, my sister saw a large bush near the trailer. She looked around to make sure no one was watching and quickly pushed me into it. She raised her fingers to her lips to motion me to be silent. Her last words were, "Host get his ear." I watched my sister with her baby walk away from me into the desert. She never looked back.
I was 30 years old from Harry Carter. On April 24th, 1915, the Turkish soldiers took away my 14-year-old son and all of our Armenian teenage boys and slaughtered them right before our eyes. They came with guns, swords, and whips and turned us around and out of our homes. Kurds killed my father, and they separated me from my 9-year-old son. I cannot tell you the violent tortures we suffered. I heard General Artemov and his army were in. I escaped and followed the army north towards Armenia. Months of marching without food or shelter and eating grass had a terrible toll on my body. I died. They threw my lifeless body on top of the others and buried us in a shallow grave. At night, the wolves would dig us out and feast on what remained of our flesh. Sometimes it wasn't just the wolves who ate our flesh.
I'm 24 years old. I'm from the village of Malatya. I was so sad and scared at the atrocities around me that I completely blocked them from my mind. I never spoke about it to my 2 daughters born in America. They never knew I had 2 children there and had to leave them behind. They had a brother and a sister that they never knew. Did they die peacefully? Did they call out my name? Did they hold each other and go to sleep never to wake up? Or maybe they lived. Maybe they were rescued by a missionary or a passing Turk who took mercy on them. Maybe they grew up and had children of their own. Or maybe they were sold into slavery, raised in a harem as sex slaves. Oh God, forgive me.
Springtime. Spring is always a season of rebirth.
200,000 remaining of the 2 million Armenians.
I was born in 1885 in the village of Husineg. I had 4 children and was 8 months pregnant with my 5th child when the Turks came at midnight. They dragged my husband away in his pajamas. I never saw him again. They forced us at bayonet point to leave our homes. I put my babies in a donkey saddlebag on either side. The trail up the mountain was steep. At one point, the animal came frightened and refused to move. The gendarmes pushed the donkey carrying my 2 small children down a mountainside to their death. I heard them scream for me, but I could do nothing. Later, we found a well and I hid in it with my last 2 children. A passing Arab came by and pulled me out of the well. I begged him to help me bring my other 2 children, but he refused. As he carried me away, I heard, "Mother, Mother," echoing from the well. I will never forget their cries.
My name is Sassouni, and I am from a small village in the mountains of Sassouni. I was 28 years old when the genocide began. In 1916, I became a Fedayeen, a freedom fighter. My wife was assigned to gather orphans from villages after they were attacked by Turks and Kurds. There were children everywhere. They were walking around, dazed, crying in shock. They had witnessed the murder of their parents, grandparents, brothers, sisters, and cousins. There was nothing but death and destruction. Imagine a line of orphans thousands long. We shared what little we had, but they were so young they couldn't understand. We marched for days with little water and little food. We slept out in the open. Every morning, fewer and fewer children waking up. We tried to save them, but we could not. I think about the children and the certain death they faced at the hands of the Marathi, Kurdish tribesmen. I could only ask, why?
I was born in the province of Sivas. Even though I was a girl, my family wanted me to get an education. I graduated from the Euphrates Missionary College in Kirkuk in 1909. I helped the missionaries run their school until April 24, 1915, when the Armenian massacres began. The soldiers emptied the homes in the Armenian sector, street by street, of 25,000 Armenians. The men were separated from the women, taken to the edge of town, and shot. The women and children were forced to march into the desert. Everyone knew they were being sent to their deaths. I was one of the lucky ones, because the American missionaries protected me. But it was not so for everyone else. There was no sleep, no protectors. There was no food, no shelter, and no water. No fires at night. There was blasphemy, obscenity, and nakedness. Corpses were tossed around like balls. The screams of the wounded and dying filled the air. Has it ever been known that a mother sells her child? Yes, they price them at 2 piasters, and there is no one taking them. We have lived for 40 centuries to face this horror. There is no one behind us. There is no one willing to give us a helping hand. No one protecting us. The sky has lost its shine. My only wish is that God will give me patience so that I do not blaspheme against his name.
King of songs, recognizing
Armenian Committee with $30,000, with $290,000 and $610,000. Total raised for Near East Foundation between 1915 and 1918, $100 million, equivalent to $2.5 billion in 2015 currency.
I was born in the village of Shabin Kamar Hisham. I was 8 years old when the Turkish soldiers came. They took my 19-year-old pregnant cousin. In front of everyone, they cut open her stomach and impaled the fetus on their bayonets. They kept throwing the poor thing in the air. We cannot bury their bodies because the soldiers chased us away. Most of the men had been conscripted into labor battalions months before, and we never heard from them again. We knew they were dead. Those of us who remained decided to fight rather than be treated like sheep led to slaughter. We burned our homes and farms. 5,000 of us went up to the Pert, an ancient Roman citadel built by Pompey. Turkish soldiers came and bombarded us with cannons. We ran out of food and water. We lasted 28 days before we surrendered. Then the massacre began. Our former neighbors joined the soldiers in killing. Any male, no matter their age, was put to death by bayonet, sword, hatchet, pipes, and club. 5-year-old boys, their hands tied behind their backs, were hung by ropes from trees in front of their parents. Mobs tore at our clothes in search of treasure. They stuck their fingers inside of me looking for gold. There were rumors Armenians swallowed their jewelry in order to hide the wealth, so many of the living and dead were disemboweled in the hunt for treasure. Bonfires were lit with the bodies of the priests, the sick, and the wounded. Many of the women took poison. Others jumped to their deaths from cliff tops, holding hands like they were at a dance.
I was born in 1895 in Karpet, Turkey. I was 20 years old when the Turkish soldiers came. They took our guns, they took our intellectuals, priests, teachers away. They separated the men from their families. The rest of us were marched towards the deserts of the Syrian border, hungry, thirsty, beaten, raped, and killed. My son was killed as so many children. I left my baby daughters in front of an Armenian church in some unknown village, thinking the Turks, like baby girls, and would bring them up as their own. Just when I thought it was my time to die, an Arab threw a gold coin to one of the soldiers standing next to me. He picked me up on his horse and took me to his home in the desert. It was a tent with an oriental rug on the ground. Sometimes I wake up at night thinking about my lost children. I try to forget all that I suffered. I try to forget all that I cannot think about without shame, for the price of a gold coin.
Arpin had 2 children, 4 grandchildren, 6 great-grandchildren. Barter had 3 children, 5 grandchildren, and 5 great-grandchildren. Galo had 4 children, 6 grandchildren, 12 great-grandchildren. Varsinig had 4 children, 8 grandchildren, 16 great-grandchildren. Yasser had 2 children, 3 grandchildren, and 4 great-grandchildren. We survived, we lived, we prospered.
The Danita International Chorale and the St. Hadolf Armenian Church Choir, led by Anais Yartunian with Jovan Metropolis Company, will now perform Yerevan Yerebuni, words by Baruch Savach and music by Edgar Hortisa. This well-known song of modern Armenia looks forward to the future. The modern capital of Armenia, Yerevan, is presented as the continuation of lost ancient cities. A dream gracing our small corner of the earth, the object of our centuries softly, our lovely beauty made of stone. The choir will sing the song through the first time, and then we are welcome to join in and sing with them on the second time.
Tonight, we remember. We remember so much pain, suffering, and death. For the past 100 years, we've had to relive the horrors and tragedies of our past every April 24th. After weeks of various events here in the Tampa Bay area focused on the Armenian Genocide, we wanted to end the weeks of commemoration events with a reflection of who we are and what we have done over our 5,000-year history. We are one of the oldest and most accomplished people in the history of the world. Our history is not defined by the genocide. We are Armenians. All of us who are Armenians remind ourselves constantly, yes, I am Armenian. Today we remember, but tomorrow we celebrate our history because we are Armenians. Our speakers for tomorrow's presentation, the last of our commemoration events, is Dr. Remembrance-Armenian. I'm pretty sure that no one has traveled further for these events than Dr. Munjian and his son Purar, who have come all the way from Pasadena, California, to have them here to help us celebrate the memory of our Armenian history. Garo was an amazing individual, and I am so pleased to call him my friend. He actually calls me bro. Bro. Garo earned his master's and doctorate degrees in Armenian history. Garo, in my opinion, is a national treasure, a national Armenian treasure. He has devoted his entire life to what in French we call la cause arménienne, the Armenian cause. He has published so many articles, research papers, and book chapters, and in fact he's working on a book right now. He's constantly giving talks on his research, many of which are completely novel and quite controversial in fact. Probably this is because his fluency in Armenian, English, Ottoman Turkish, Arab, a dialect of Kurdish, and even Azeri gives him access to documents that few researchers could possibly have access to. Tomorrow's presentation at 7 o'clock will actually review 5,000 years of Armenian history. Why? Because the Armenian Genocide does not define who we are. His presentation will include a portion on the genocide and in fact include a very controversial area of his research that he calls the smoking gun. Now, there are some of you that may say, how in the world are you going to review 5,000 years of Armenian history concisely? Well, we actually did a trial run yesterday at the University of South Florida, and we pulled it off successfully, so I think it will entertain you. Finally, his presentation is going to focus on the great accomplishments of the diaspora since the genocide. So I hope you will come and join us for Dr. Munjian's presentation tomorrow at 7 o'clock. Thank you.
Եվ պահպանյա ըս հավատացյա ժողովուրդս այս եւ մանավանդ 1.5 միլիոն նահատակածն Հայոց Ցեղասպանութեան. Christ, God, you crown your saints with triumph, and you do the will of all who fear you, looking after your creatures with love and kindness. Lord, hear us from your heavenly place, and by the intercession of the Holy Mother of God, and by the prayers of all your saints, especially the holy martyrs who brought their lives to completion for faith and for homeland during the great genocide which we commemorate today.